in Windham County. And here in Bennington County, we've got heavy, wet snow, but we haven't lost our power yet. Knock on wood. So if we do, I'll be gone, obviously, because my internet doesn't run without power. So anyhow.
Dick, before you start, Peggy, on the screen, we have a message, a pop-up message saying the meeting is being live streamed. Somebody has to click got it in order to get it off the screen.
Yes, if you can go to my desk and the little monitor above it, you can say got it.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ready when you are, Senator Sears.
Yeah, Michelle, go ahead. You were going to walk us through the amendment.
Sure. So I'm trying to remember myself since it was a couple of weeks ago, but there were just a few changes that I think the committee had agreed on in terms of going in a direction for discussion purposes. And I thought it'd be good to talk about them just so that the witnesses didn't talk about sections that weren't in there any longer. So let me share my screen. Everybody see that all right?
Yeah.
So section 1 substantively is the same, but I just fixed some typos there the way that it was structured. So it's still just prohibiting the imposition of bail for misdemeanors. Section 2 is the study. And that has been changed. If you recall, the bill as introduced had a list of folks that were going to be doing the study. And through some of the committee discussion at the last hearing, folks thought it might be more appropriate for the Vermont Sentencing Commission in consultation with the network to be doing that study. And so that's the main change there. There was in the bill is introduced a section 3 on collection of race data with regard to pretrial detainees, and you wound up covering that, I believe, in S4 or one of your other bills, and so
14, I think.
Okay, so that's no longer in there, and then but you still have the new section 3, which was previously section 4, which is the direction to the judiciary to develop a program for being able to notify folks of the upcoming court hearings. So that's it. So the main change is to the removal of the collection of data and switching it to the study to the Sentencing Commission.
I think the only place that I have a difficulty, given the testimony from various witnesses, is in section 1 that prohibits cash bail on any misdemeanor. That includes the stalking, domestic violence, misdemeanor domestic violence. So I think that's where the committee is maybe split, or we need more discussion where we're headed.
Senator Sears?
Yep.
Also had a question about, I'm not remembering whether or not the judiciary spoke to this, but if we're requiring this notification system, can they do that with existing resources?
I think they said they could.
Okay.
But I stand to be corrected. Senator Boholsky wanted to comment.
Can I just ask a question of what is the makeup of the Sentencing Commission? I'm just curious who sits on that commission.
I was going to start with a lot of people, but generally the chairs of Senate and House Judiciary, the Defender General, the state's attorneys, the Attorney General, I believe the network's also involved, or unless the Center for Crime Victim Services, maybe not the network. There's also a number of, the judiciary obviously is involved. I can't remember all the appointments.
Okay, I can probably find it, because
Michelle, do you have that handy? Who's on
Yeah,
this?
I just, Tanya, I just dropped a link to the statute in the chat for everyone. So, so you can see there. If that's not easy for you to access, I can just read off from the statute if you'd like.
that would be great, because I can't access the chat.
Sure. So the commission consists of the following members: the Chief Justice of the Vermont Supreme Court or designee, Chief Superior Judge or designee, Superior Court Judge with substantial criminal law experience who's appointed by the Chief Superior Judge, the Chair of Senate Committee on Judiciary, Chair of House Committee on Judiciary, the Attorney General or designee, the Defender General or designee, Executive Director of Department of State's Attorneys and Sheriffs or designee, the Appellate Defender, a State's Attorney appointed by the ED of the Department of State's Attorneys and Sheriffs, a Staff Public Defender with experience in juvenile defense matters appointed by the Defender General, an attorney with substantial criminal law experience appointed by the VBA, the Commissioner of Corrections or designee, the Commissioner of Public Safety or designee, the Executive Director of the Center for Crime Victim Services or designee, the Executive Director of the Vermont Crime Research Group, and one member of the public appointed by the governor.
Thank you. So my concern with moving it just to the Sentencing Commission is we are kind of missing racial justice representation. I think it would be really important as we have this conversation to have our community justice and restorative justice voice involved. And then of course we heard from the network that they would want to be involved. And I think we also heard from the Vermont Freedom Fund that they would like to be part of the conversation. So it feels like the Sentencing Commission is really skewed heavily in the direction of the judiciary and law enforcement, and not is representative of people who have been impacted by the bias within the cash bail system.
Well, I have a question in reference to that. I don't disagree, but Senator Sears, who established the Vermont Sentencing Commission?
Well, the legislature several years ago.
Okay.
It was an attempt to take some of these types of issues and have a commission that could deal with various sentencing issues. And I think it actually started about 10 or 12 years ago, and we had an executive director. But that position got cut during the hard times, and so it's more volunteer now.
Thank you.
Yeah, and the list of the Sentencing Commission, certainly, like I had started to make a list of who I thought should be on this work group, and a lot of the people are captured in that list, but not all of them. And then there are some people in the Sentencing Commission list that weren't on my list. But you know, I think the inclusion of the network is important. Like I said, restorative justice, perhaps someone from the criminal justice centers that's appointed by the AG. I think it would be helpful to potentially have someone from legal aid there. And then the director of racial justice. Well,
we could add those people. We can't add them. We could add them to the Sentencing Commission, but I don't know how that would go over. But we can add them to the list of in consultation with.
Tanya, can you give me those again? You said so the director of racial justice, and then you said someone from the community justice centers.
Yeah, or someone who works in restorative justice, and I think most of our community justice centers work directly with the Attorney General, so that could potentially be appointed by the Attorney General. That one's challenging because it's not a super unified system. The network, of course, I said legal aid and then the Vermont Freedom Fund. I also think that given that other states have done this, it's important to consult with, what has worked in those states and, whether that's through NCSL or through the Bail Project or one of the other organizations that's already done this work. We don't need to create the wheel.
Senator Sears?
Yeah.
Just wondering what's your pleasure on how to move forward on that?
Well, I'm good with if it's in consultation with the Sentencing Commission or some other. I hate to start a completely new group to look at one issue. And it's easier if they're in consultation when the Sentencing Commission does this in consultation with. I think you'll find the Sentencing Commission much more amenable to progressive issues than might otherwise be thought.
Okay.
So, but I don't have a problem within consultation with. I would have a problem with remaking the commission.
If I am understanding what's happening in the room, I think that's fine.
Yeah, I can live with that.
Okay, so that's since Michelle has the names, that's a relative.
Yeah, that. I'm wondering if, again, I have a concern about before we have the study, we are in section 1 exempting certain crimes, all misdemeanors, but including certain violent crimes. And that's where I have a somewhat of a.
Yeah. Well, if I might, Senator Sears, I know what you're talking about. The network's testimony was compelling for me when they were talking about this being an imperfect tool, but the only tool that was available to bring some of these people to court. So I do have questions myself about eliminating cash bail in those instances, the stalking and domestic violence related pieces.
This is sort of where I think it's helpful to work with some of the national groups that have done this. We're not supposed to use that as a tool to prevent violence. And there's a fair amount of research out there that has shown that these proactive notification tools and proactive systems, and we heard from the Freedom Fund as well, actually do a better job at getting people to show up than cash bail does. So that's part of why I want to make sure that we're hearing. And I wish that we had been able to get some of those national groups in to talk to the committee on this bill. But unfortunately, scheduling just did not work. But that's really why I want to make sure that we're not trying to recreate that system and we are getting those questions answered from people who have done this work.
Well, it still leaves us with if we, what other misdemeanors would be added if we just exempted the stalking and domestic violence, misdemeanor domestic violence? What other misdemeanors would be added to the list? Michelle?
I'm sorry, what other ones would be added by?
That
I
are
thought you guys were
considered
just
violent.
coming up. Pardon?
Yeah. That are considered, are there any misdemeanors besides stalking and domestic violence which are listed crimes?
Let me take a look. I think there are still some misdemeanors in chapter 69 on sexual exploitation of children.
Yeah.
But let me take a look and I'll get back to you in a couple minutes.
Okay. Those I would, if we're gonna exempt certain violent misdemeanors, I want to make sure we don't exempt something that's a listed crime.
The other thing I see in the new version of the bill, in that, I don't know if it was the version of the bill, sorry, I'm trying to, one of the things that seems to have been taken out of the sort of task of this study is to develop a proposal for eliminating cash bail, and I do want to make sure that that is included.
I think it was, but Senator Sears registered a question about it or a concern about it. Because Dick, was I understanding right that you thought it was cart before the horse in terms of indicating where it wanted the study to go?
Yes.
So it is in the language of the amendment, but with a flag.
Which not in the language of the amendment, it's in the original version. It's not in the language of the amendment. We end simply at work collaboratively to identify the conditions that would be required to move towards the elimination of the use of cash bail for the purpose of mitigating risk of flight from prosecution and develop. Oh, no, it is there. I just missed it.
Yeah.
Okay, never mind. I read right past it.
All right.
So I guess my opinions kind of split the difference. I can see the network's argument on why we shouldn't eliminate cash bail currently for because of those crimes that they mentioned. On the other hand, I don't have a problem with the language about the study moving to a defined place beforehand. We have done that on many occasions when we know where we want to go. The question is, do we know as a committee where we want to go?
Well, that's a good question, and I'm reminded of S5 right now. That's pretty specific in terms of what the study is studying.
Yeah.
So we all know what it's looking for, and is that feasible and is it possible? So I guess on this one, I would say I'm fine with being more directive than not. But how, what would be the impact? The question really is, what would be the impact of eliminating cash bail? And that I thought the idea of looking at other states was also a good thing. Some states have had problems and have readjusted afterwards. Some states have not done it. Michelle, did you have more information on?
Yeah, I was just going to fill you in on the misdemeanor crimes. So you mentioned stalking and domestic assault. There's also reckless endangerment, violation of restraining order, misdemeanor abuse of a vulnerable adult. And just mentioning it's not in listed crimes, but in other places where you've defined a violent crime is where you think you have any misdemeanors relating to sexual exploitation of children, but that is not a listed crime. But I just mentioned that because you have designated it as a violent crime in other places.
Yeah, several times we've done that. I'd be more comfortable if all those crimes were exempted from this section 1. Myself personally.
You say add them or take them out?
Exempt them from.
Yeah.
In other words, continue to.
It'd still be the same system. You can still use cash bail for those 5 or 6 items that Michelle just did.
I mean, I would just given the purpose of bail, would certainly prefer not exempting them, but if that's the way the bill is gonna move forward, I'm willing to agree to it.
Well, there's only, yeah, it's just my comfort with the bill. Until we have the study, and then once we have the study, then I think you have a much better basis to go on if you're going to.
Yeah, and that's why I'm willing to agree to that. I mean, we heard that the misdemeanor folks being held on cash bail is pretty small at this point. And, you know, the study date is not too far into the distant future to give us a pathway towards eliminating cash bail. This is why I don't love it, but I do feel like I can accept the sort of exempting of those misdemeanors given those circumstances.
Okay. I can live with that once we see the actual amendment.
Mhm.
Is that good for you, Senator Baruth and Senator Norris?
Sounds good to me.
I just need a quick recap here. What are we doing exactly again here? Are we looking at eliminating cash bail with these exemptions obviously being carved out, and this study group is going to study what exactly, whether or not to include those, or just cash bail in itself?
Cash bail.
Cash bail for all crimes. The study group would be all crimes, and they could say that certain crimes should, the study group is directed to look at alternative ways of holding people accountable to coming and making sure they come to court, which is one of the reasons for cash bail, make sure people show up. And secondly, would be looking at whether you eliminate cash bail for crimes, certain felony crimes, and these other misdemeanor crimes that we would be exempting at this point.
So Senator Sears, this group is going to report back to us by December 1st, 2023, correct?
Yep.
And in the interim, how does this work? Is cash bail simply gone on what we vote on here?
No,
No.
cash bail would still be effective for all felonies and certain misdemeanors, which Michelle will have the list.
But also, Senator Norris, is the section 1, which is addressing which crimes you can do cash bail for, that has a later effective date. So if you look down at the effective date section, you'll see that section 1 doesn't take effect until July 1st of 2025. So the way that the bill is structured is that, you have kind of this future date for that to take effect if based on the report that comes back from the study group, if you want to make changes to that, you have the 2024 and 2025 legislative session to amend that section, to change it in any way you want, to repeal it, to let it go into effect as is.
Okay, and that's good because like Senator Sears has mentioned, I take stock and that we don't put the cart before the horse here. So if that's the 25 start and report back on the 23rd or 2023, I guess I won't have a problem with that as written.
Michelle, and Peggy, can we fit time in for a formal vote on this when Michelle has the amendment completed? And I don't think she could do it in 25 minutes. Maybe I'm wrong.
We have time on Friday.
Yeah, I know, but I got a feeling Friday will also be some other days, but we could put it in Friday morning. Is there any time tomorrow?
Let me look. Tomorrow at 9 o'clock, we have S89, several witnesses.
Yep.
It would mark up impossible vote. I don't know if we'll have time for all that. Then we're breaking at 11. And then 11:15, we have S89, S79 hospital liens, walkthrough and testimony.
I'm getting a,
12.
okay.
Senator Sears?
I
Yep.
can get the amendment for you for tomorrow morning, so you'll
Yeah.
just at least
Oh.
have it. And then if you do find some time on Wednesday or Thursday, maybe.
Yeah, we could do it at 11:15 tomorrow, Peggy. Just
Okay.
push off the hospital liens until 11:25. I don't think it'd take more than 10 minutes to vote on it. If Michelle has the document to us beforehand, and if there's any questions, we can do them then.
Did you
Something
hear?
just happened.
Yeah, we lost the feed for a second and it's rejoined and used the different camera,
Yep.
Ah,
I guess the default camera.
Did you hear any of what I said, Senator
But
Sears?
are we, if we're putting off the vote till tomorrow, are we done then, Dick?
I think so. I don't think I can do any more business because we haven't put in any other agenda items on.
Okay,
Do you
We're
want me
just that
to,
we're gonna be busy this week.
do you want me to squeeze it in at 10:45 tomorrow?
Pardon me?
Do you want me to squeeze it in at 10:45 tomorrow?
I have a question.
Yeah.
Dick, you have a question from Senator Norris.
Oh, okay. Senator Norris.
Yes, I don't know who to ask this question, Senator Sears, but in looking at S27, would the bail only apply to the initial appearance and that subsequent failures to appear, whatever else, this would not prevent the imposition of cash bail?
I don't know for sure. Michelle, do you know?
Maybe Rory can answer that, or
Sorry about that. The internet is really unstable, so it keeps going in and out. I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
my
What
question
does
is,
failure to appear do?
the bill
If you-
applies, seems to apply to the first appearance, but what about any subsequent appearances as far as failure to appears or whatever else?
I'd ask one of the witnesses on that. This is like an initial arraignment when they impose conditions or, and which bailiff may be one of them. I don't know if somebody doesn't show up and then what happens after that.
Rory, are you there?
Rory or Judge Zone or Matt Valerio could answer that.
Good morning. For the record, Rory Tebow from the Department of State Attorneys and Sheriffs. Our read of the bill is that this would apply to the initial appearance only. So when someone is cited or arrested after hours, and it wouldn't preclude a court from exercising its discretion to issue a warrant and then maintain bail if someone does not appear for a status conference, a pretrial conference, or for a jury trial.
Okay, thank you.
Sounds like everybody's in agreement. I haven't heard a no from Matt Valerio or Judge Zone. Right. So, reluctant to carry on further business, other than that there will be an amendment to S33 on Thursday morning. It's brought to my attention that a Supreme Court ruling Vermont Supreme Court ruling has impacted the statute of limitations on suits against manufacturers of pollutants. And we need to try to correct that. So we'll have some testimony on that Thursday morning that I did not anticipate. Other than that, hopefully we can get through all of our bills this week and beyond the crossover, especially if we don't lose power. But my internet is also unstable, Michelle. I think it's statewide probably.
So I'll get this amendment written up today, and as long as we've got some power for a few hours and get it edited, and then I'll get it to Peggy and she can send it out to everybody either by the end of the day or first thing tomorrow morning.
Sounds good. Thank you all very much. I will see you all tomorrow morning, bright and early.
Peggy, can you end the meeting or do I need to do something here?